Hi everyone, welcome to Flourish by Design TV, the launchpad for creatives that are bringing their purpose to the world. And I have an amazing guest for you today, Nancy from the Business Mission. Hi Nancy, how are you doing?
Hello, Caroline. I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
Great, fantastic. And it's so excited to have Nancy here, everyone, because she's a woman on a mission. And yeah, she's here from London. And I've asked her actually on to talk about a really important topic. And first of all, just for a context of how myself and Nancy know each other, because I always think always interested in that. So I always think that other people would be interested in that too. So myself and Nancy actually met, would you believe, over in the States on a women's networking, I suppose, group that we have with Michelle Coy, the beautiful Michelle Coy. So she does a Friday business, networking get together chat. And Nancy came on, and I just went, wow, she has amazing energy. Wow. There's
You're you
something
too.
about Nancy. I just thought you're so passionate actually about what you talk about. And you might think that the creative world and the world of law and the legal side of things, looks sometimes like they don't sit together. But as we are talking on, behind the scenes here, and I'm very passionate about is, protecting the creativity, that creative spark that we're here to bring our ideas to the world. But it's really, really important to get, like that we were talking about, structure and movement in equal measure. So I've asked Nancy to come on and talk to, my community and friends and people who are bringing I'm very passionate about their ideas in the world and wanting to make change, but to bring awareness around, protecting those ideas, especially when we're in this global village now, and we're online, we're sharing everything. We have a lot of ideas that we're putting out there, but to bring awareness around how can we protect those things. We're in trademarking and working in collaboration with people and setting up, business plans and everything. So Nancy is just like the girl to go to on this topic. She has a passion for, I see on your Facebook page, Nancy, getting very excited about these like 5-inch thick legal books around intellectual property law. And I'm like
I
nerding
do
out on that.
intellectual property a lot, and I'm in my third degree, specializing in intellectual property law. I did a master's in international business law, which had a module in intellectual property, and I did a MBA in global law. So yeah, I got that as a birthday present, and I was over the moon.
Yeah.
I know some people would go on holidays and cards and stuff, but there I am. I'm definitely an IP woman.
Yeah, I could see that. She was like, "Yeah, woohoo!" It's amazing. But I'd love to know before we go into all the details about the different topics. I'd love to bring awareness to. I'd love to know, where have you got this passion for, actually, Nancy? Because it's very, it's niche, really, and I know it's. I suppose it's lovely that you're, I suppose, more accessible to people. I feel you have a face that's accessible. Like, you're trying to break down that barrier of the fear around becoming empowered around your rights and your legal rights and stuff. And for people that are working, maybe like they're sole traders or whatever. So where's that come from? It's because it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I think I've just always been creative, and my parents are both creative as well. My father's an engineer, and my mother used to paint. And interestingly enough, it's a sector of law that is actually very creative, because intellectual
Mm.
property, which is the umbrella name, because there is 4 different intellectual properties involved, it refers to the creation of the mind. Okay.
Wow.
So it's things like such as invention, artistic works, design, and I love designs, symbols, names, and images that are used in your business. So I like to break down the word, which is intellectual, which is in the mind, and then put onto property.
Mm.
So intellectual property is really the tangible assets that you create, such as the design, as I said, and the really automatic process of it. Um,
Mm.
so, it's very important that you have the legal rights that protect your work and your invention. And, it's the overall protection. You should really protect what you create. And I think a lot of artists are fantastic and passionate at what they want to create, but they don't have the legal knowledge to understand how to safeguard that. And then in the end, somebody else makes more money than them.
Mm.
I know we had a conversation before I came online, but Sid and Nancy was a fantastic example of these two very talented musicians, but in the end, passed away broke because a lot of people made
Mm.
money off them, but they just didn't have the knowledge. So hopefully, this talk that we have today will help other creatives out there get the confidence to know that their work is worth something. And I just, with a creative background, one of my hobbies is making cakes. So I love making cakes. As a hobby, I wouldn't turn it into business, but I do a little bit hobby for friends and family and stuff like that. And that's a creative juice that I go through my side here. But when you come to a business element of it, it's super important to understand your intellectual property, especially, like I said, in the creative world.
Yeah, and actually, I love that. Because actually, it's funny because we have that in common. I haven't said that to you, but I'm a big cake maker myself as well.
Yeah, I
And
think you did mention that to me. We'll have to have a bake-off.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Dublin, London Bake Off.
Why not?
That would be good fun. Yeah, but it's so true because like it comes down to value in your ideas. Like, I love the way you described that about the intellectual property. So, like, the fact that there's so many. I suppose we can think of property as something as being it's physical. So it's
Yes.
in the world, and we could see like a house, and we can understand, okay, that is worth an awful lot of real estate. It costs money. But because sometimes ideas and thinking, because I'm design thinking lecturer, that we don't realize that the thought, the idea, the intellectual kind of spark of genius that's come from us has massive value, and if we can kind of see it like, a property nearly as such, it can give us a more of a tangibility around it, and to kind of visualize that, even for creative people who are very visual, to understand that more, so that every time you come up with an idea, that you should value it and you should protect it and you should make sure, because I know there's lots of different stories around music. We're kind of more familiar with that, like you've illustrated so well, that I suppose people going to, like you say, wanting to have fame, wanting to have fortune, and not realizing the pitfalls that are there. And I know even in fashion, I know there was a legal issue. I think it was about 6 months ago. Somebody told me about a fashion designer who had come up with this amazing, beautiful brand, and her ideas were taken and copied
Mhm.
by multinational, and she didn't actually she brought them to court, and the only thing that actually got her, and she won the case in the end, was because of her sketchbooks, and she
Right.
could
Yeah.
prove that she had that unique individual idea that came from her. And actually the multinational didn't have that. They couldn't prove that it was actually the idea, the seed of, like I often talk about, the seed of an idea wasn't proven in their, they couldn't prove that, so she
Yeah.
had it in her sketchbooks. But the fact that she, and it would take a lot of bravery to go forward and to take legal action against a big company. So not many people, that's something that we can see, but there's so many people that probably have been taken advantage of, and that we don't know about. There's no
Well,
awareness
and
around,
also
you
they
know
feel, I don't have the money to fight the big
yes,
boys.
yes.
And it was very interesting what you just said a minute, because there is this thrill of making something new and this feeling that every creative individual really cherishes. And so they get very excited, or they want to get noticed, and
Mm.
they'll do anything to get that fame. And in the long run, they'll realize that their rights have been very violated, and then it's too late. Whether you create anything graphic design or a music piece, The moment a new idea finds its form from something that creatives live for. But you need to take this creative work very seriously, and you need to care a little bit more about protecting the intellectual property. And like, for example, if a singer writes a song, those words are his words or her words. And then she puts it on paper and says to this, producer, I want to produce music. Well, there is then the unrelated rights. And you have to be quite careful as a creative that you do document that in a contract. So you'll document that, and then the producer will produce the notes to that song. Then he has some rights to that, but not full rights. And then if you take that song and decide, I'm going to sing it in, an auditorium, then the auditorium gets a certain rights to it as well. And then the ticket sales people and da 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 da. So the whole domino effect, if you don't put contracts in place to safeguard, you could lose the identity of your, creative work. A very interesting case was the Meghan Markle's letter to her father, because her words went on paper. So it's her letter, and she sent it to him, and he sold it to the Mirror, which he was not allowed because it was not his words. And that's why she won the case. So if you separate the expression to the property, it makes a little bit more sense. So once the words are in your head, that's not IP yet. IP, you have to get the expression out of your head and put it onto a item that is intangible still, but then it becomes more of a sustainable property that you can cover yourself as a creative.
It's really brilliant to bring awareness around this, Sensi, because like that we talked about earlier on around the creative flow. And when people are in this creative flow, and they get very excited, they get into this. That's the flow stage, is like when you're feeling fantastic, you're feeling great, you're very positive frame of mind. You can't see the pitfalls, you're not in that kind of analytical, logical side of your brain. Actually, you're in a different state, so I suppose I'm just thinking to myself, what advice would you give to somebody who becoming aware of, okay, I'm a creative and I know that I want to value my ideas, but where do you start to protect an idea? When do you start to bring in those, trademarking or contracts, or is it, when is it important to become aware of it? And, when is it important to start, I suppose, applying for trademark, or when would you advise that? Say if you feel like, oh God, I've got a really great idea, I want to do something with it, or have a new business idea, or like, even I know a lot of graphic designers who now are becoming, creating their own products. They are selling products online because I suppose it's opening up the business, I suppose, a business world, because we've a global market now. There's a lot more possibility. So I'd just love to know, like, when would you bring that in? Would you advise somebody like who's listening now that has a great idea, they're even in the process of making a prototype or something like that? When is it important to start that process, and what are the steps that you take?
Yes. So there's a saying, don't make decisions when you're really excited, and don't make decisions when you're really depressed. And so, again, when you're laboring away in your room, and your heart and mind is in this new creation, and then, you think, oh, it's amazing and everyone's going to love it and I'm going to share it to the world. This is when you neglect to make sure that your original idea remains your property. So it's just really taking smaller steps, and just pausing for a moment and looking at your design and saying, this is really amazing and I really love it and I want to protect it now. It's a child, like the child comes out You want to protect this child before you show it into the entire world. I mean, there's lots of celebrities that don't even show their children for the first year because they want to keep it to themselves. And then, you know, even for example, the Kardashians, all the Kardashians family is trademarked, you know, all the names
Mm.
of the family are trademarked. And the world is always looking for new ideas, and there is huge potential in, you know, in to make cash with your creativity. So you really have to sort of pause for a moment and understand the, you know, the value you have there. Okay. So in order to do that, you need to prove the originality of your ideas. And if your intellectual property is not secure, neither is your financial future. So I would probably say that the minute you design something, you need to, you know, if you design a logo, for example, the very first thing is, if you're designing it on like a platform, Canva, it's probably not good because Canva owns all their IP. And
Mm.
what that means is, if you take your logo that you designed on Canva and go to the trademark office, you could probably get the trademark through, but in the long run, Canva will not give you their IP, because once a designer gives you the intellectual property, then it's yours. But if they don't, they lose out by using that design again. That's why Canva has all those templates, because
Mm.
it's okay for normal design work. If Canva came back to you and said, listen, we don't like how you're using our design work, well, okay, well, we'll scrap it. But once you've gone to trademark and you've spent that money, well, you know, you have to bin it, because you can't
Oh,
use, and other
oh,
people out there will have similar designs than you know.
Nancy, that is such an important thing to become
Yes,
aware of, because as a professional designer, and I've worked with massive brands like Orange and Reebok, and kind of global brands, and there's a thing called a brand Bible, that we come up with when we create, and that is like, you do not change from that, and it's trademarked. The logo, the colors are everything is trademarked, and the
yes,
fonts that are used, everything. This is across the board, and you can't change it as a designer, and then it's protected also. And for me to look at the way design is unfolding now, and people are using now product, those apps like Canva, and I see a lot of people who are coaches and people who are online, doing their own designs and using these templates and stuff like that. And I'm kind of wondering to myself, yeah, how are they protected? They're coming up with logos, and it's templated logos and things like that. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, wow, how where are the rights there? Where's the ownership? Because it's completely different when you get a design, like a brand design, designed by a professional brand designer. How there's a professional practice, I guess, that you put
yeah,
in place. You hand over your designs to the client, and then they own that. So that's a brilliant to bring awareness around just even your own logo identity for your business at the very basics, like, of any business. So important to bring that awareness, actually, especially around those apps, because I don't think anyone, I had questioned that myself, but again, I don't have the legal knowledge to really talk about it, until you brought it up there. It's
well, I
fantastic.
think personally, it's better to go to an independent designer. And
Mm.
when you do work with them, very important is an NDA. Anybody you do business with, NDA. So it's a non-disclosure agreement. That's the very first step, that
Mhm.
you need to give to a graphic designer or anybody you're going to work with. The
Mhm.
next step is the contract. And in the contract, there needs to be a clause about IP saying that once you design this, you're going to transfer the rights of the intellectual property to me. So that means the designer can't design that logo again. And also, it's safe for you to go to trademark. Um,
Wow. Yeah.
and that relinquishes the rights of the designer. So I'll give you a really good example. When I set up the business mission, there was an explosion that I wanted, and I went on Splash. It was a Photoshop thing, and sorry, and there was a designer, and I went to him and I said, listen, I'd really like to buy that splash, but you wouldn't be able to use it again because I would own it and I'm going to take the trademark. And he said, well, look, you can have it for £35,000 because he can't reap money from it anymore. It cuts him off doing that. And I thought, oh, it's not that worth that much for
Yeah.
but I did find a younger designer who had something similar, which was the splash. And I wrote to him and I said, listen, I have a newspaper. If you want, I can write an article about, because he was a photographer, I can write an article about you, which will bring you business if you would sell me the splash, but you won't be able to use it again. So we exchanged very small monetary funds, and I gave him the article, and that relinquished his rights to that. And then I went to trademark with that. So again, I would say to those people using Canva, designing logos or trying to design their own logos on some apps, if you're going to go to trademark, it's not going to work because those companies are not going to relinquish their rights to those templates because they'll lose money from using those templates again. So it's better to go to a designer, pay a little bit more, but you've got that security that you can take it to trademark and know that nobody else is going to have the same design as you, first of all, and there's no trademark infringement issues going on, and that's original to you as a business.
Yeah, true to you, as I say, create brands for, true to you, and like to protect that as well, because if you're invested again in creating a brand identity that's true to your own purpose, especially when it comes to people who on these people nowadays like are very mission orientated, in their lives, in their work and what they want to do in the world. So, I suppose to protect that is really important. And I suppose professional designers know that process, like you were talking about. Like we know that when somebody comes to us, that we're creating something for them that we'll be handing over, and that they have the rights to that. And like it's non-disclosure as well, that when you're working on projects, everything is kept quiet, there's a privacy massively around branding, around launches, global launches, that you just can't, you have to
NDA
protect that. Yes, completely. Yeah.
Somebody doesn't want to sign an NDA, because I've heard this many times. Well, they won't sign an NDA. Do not do business with them because they're not respecting your importance of your project. So don't do business with them. I just say, if somebody won't sign an NDA, and then they say, oh, well, NDAs don't hold up in court. They do. There's a piece of paper, there's evidence that you shouldn't have been discussing it. And so, yes, at least you have something to stand on, if there was leakage on the other party. But these are very important because, the creative aspects, there's a massive mistake, as anyone, could be a victim of your idea or theft, will tell you that when someone steals it, it's not a good feeling, and until your idea has been made public, it's really impossible to prove that it's yours, because I had a client who went and just tried to do some work with a manufacturer, and then the manufacturer decided to steal the idea, and China is very notorious for that. He went off to duplicate it because they had no contract. And again, there was another scenario with a lady that I had who did eelskin handbags, and she decided to go to China to manufacture them. And this is before I started working with her. She didn't do an NDA. She didn't do a contract with them. And in the end, they stole the idea, locked her out of China, trademarked her name, and then went and trademarked in the US. And in the end, she had to close her line down because they had all the ideas of how to make the handbags, how to design them, where to get the material. And so they were in the power. So to avoid, that power, the creative people out there really need a platform that will instantly ensure the continued security of their creative ideas.
Oh, Nancy, that is so amazing to put that out there. Everybody listen to this, because it's so important, and especially like in, like you say, manufacturing something, So say if you have the idea, you're in Ireland, you're a designer in the UK, then you start to look, okay, I have this brilliant idea, where am I going to get it manufactured? And often like that, we're going across to other countries. But like that, you open yourself up there to, your idea being stolen, and like that's an amazing
Yeah.
illustration of what can happen. It's so important to understand that, because often, even last night we were talking to a friend of mine. You think to yourself, oh no, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that.
Oh,
You
no.
it's
You'd
like,
be amazed what people are like with greed and poverty. If you're going very well and you're, I mean, Taylor Smith was a very good example of copyright. I mean, she wrote all these songs and then the agency, pulled a woolly over her. So she has actually re-recorded all her music just to own her copyright. You just never know when your creative ideas will take off. And ideas that are ahead of their time often take a while to be even recognized. Okay. So if they aren't secured, you might not be the one to earn the income when the time comes. So securing these creative ideas. Now, with copyright, I mean, there's 4 different sectors with IP. There's the trademarks, which we've just touched on, and then copyright, which actually, the minute you put it on paper, the song, the words, whatever, you own that copyright till the time you die, and then 70 years after. Okay.
wow.
And after that, if there is nobody in your family that want to hold on to the copyright, then it goes to public domain. So Mozart is a public domain music. Mickey Mouse actually is coming into public domain as well, and that means anyone can use it. Marvin Gates, which is another good case example. There's a song called Blurred Lines, which was sung by Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams. I'm sorry if his name's not Williams. I can't remember his last name. But anyway, the tune started very similar to a Marvin Gaye song. And, the Marvin Gaye family owned the copyright. They took over him as a company and said, no, hold on. That sounds too similar to what, Marvin Gaye sang. And sure enough, they won the case. That's the thing about music these days. A lot of cases, like Ed Sheridan recently had a copyright case. Katy Perry had one, because there's limited almost tunes out there. It's almost like I'm singing a song. I don't know that there's another song that exists out there until I find out that this, with Ed Sheridan in his recent case, there was some guy that we had never even heard of saying, no, I did this low-key song and it sounds too similar to Ed Sheeran, so I'm going to sue him. So again, it's just very important that you know your rights out there when you are writing or you're singing something, to do your research that the tune doesn't exist out there. But yeah, with copyright, the minute you put it on paper, it's yours. In the UK, it's yours, but in the US, you can actually register a copyright, which is even better, to do, because you cover all your bases. But in the UK, we don't have that. It's immediately yours once, you have written it down. So.
Yeah, for writers, because I've written poetry books and a children's book as well. And for writing as such, a lot of people write online, like they write an idea, they might, and I have friends of mine like that as well. They write something, say, just in their notebook, and then it puts straight onto Facebook.
Yeah.
How are they, what is the rights around that?
Well, it's very hard because it's such a diluted place, Facebook. I mean, just toning back on trademarks, if you're on Facebook, Facebook is a US entity, which a lot of people fail to understand. So when it comes to trademark is territorial. So if I'm in the UK, I need to trademark in the UK, but that will cover me in the UK. There is one trademark which is covers the EU, which will cover you in all the countries of the year, the 26 countries, because now we're separated. And but it's another topic, but there is unrelated rights in trademarks, like in Finland and Holland, which means that if you've logged it, you have the right to that name before anyone else does. So ideally, when it comes to a name for your company, you really should come up with something super, super creative that is not out there. So it doesn't need to say what's on the tin, but once you do that, then trademark. But now that we are in the artificial intelligence landscape with this social media landscape, like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram are all US. So you need to be trademarked there, because somebody on Facebook, and we've had a case, or we've had a client and she has said, oh, I found this company that's got the same name as me on Facebook. And I'm trademarked in the US, in China, in India, the UK, and the EU countries. And so I had a look and I said, yes, you're right. She's based in Canada. We can't wipe her out of Canada, but we can get her off Facebook. And so we started with cease and desist letters, and the woman obviously didn't have the knowledge about intellectual property and said, oh, I'm very sorry. And I said, that's okay. It could have got much nastier if she didn't work with us, because you can charge a fine and then profits of their company as well, whatever profits that they made from the name that they've used. And you have to rip down all your work. You have to find whatever. So she had to rip down her Facebook, rip down her Instagram. She had to find wherever it was lurking on Google. She had to get rid of that. And then obviously on her end, it's more costly because she'd have to come up with a new name. And we could have taken a percentage of her profits, but we were a little bit kind to her because she didn't know. But she can sell all she wants in Canada, but she can't come onto social media unless she is trademarked in the US, and in TikTok, it's China. So
Wow.
the
Okay.
whole new landscape with the
Yeah.
social media, and securing your creative ideas creates and ensures the longevity, and also it demonstrates that it's yours. So no matter what happens, you have that security. And with copyright, it's a little bit challenging with the internet because everything is shared and shared and shared and shared. People copy and paste, but there could be possibilities. I know with my newspaper, and we writing articles, and then we use visuals to marry the article, we always have to ask to use the visuals to the author and give him credit. And in some cases, you have to pay. It's probably better to actually pay for the image that you're going to use, or put the creditation on there, because these people have worked hard to put their creativeness on that, and they should be acknowledged for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, they're fantastic topics to open up, because like that, we're in like that global villages they're talking about, and people not being aware of, that if they have a business and they're promoting it on Facebook, that's an American trademark that they'll need. Like, that's fantastic to open
And
up.
TikTok is Chinese, so you
Yeah, and TikTok Chinese,
trademark
yeah.
in China, or somebody on TikTok that has something similar than yours will, of course, say there's an infringement, and that it's more cost effective. Because I had this debate with somebody on social media yesterday, who said to me, "Oh, it's a personal choice." She was telling some lady it was a personal choice, and I was like, no, it's more. And she said, oh, some startups don't have the money to trademark. And I was like, listen, a trademark can cost you, with my fees and the trademark application, probably about £900, let's say. But considering you could maybe be charged up to 20 grand for the infringement, and then you have to rip everything down, then you have to start redesigning, then you've lost your audience because they're not going to be able to find you because you've got a new name. It's more costly in the long run. And if you just do a trademark, what a lot of people don't understand about trademarks is a valuable asset as well. IKEA and Nike have them actually in separate companies. So if the business collapsed, their trademark is still worth something. I could take Nike's trademark if they sell it to me for 10 million and re-erect it to start off again, because it's got such a strong brand to it, that the trademark itself. You can even gift trademarks as well. You can leave it in your will to gift it to other people. So it's super, super important. I think the minute you come up with a name, immediately get it trademarked, and just trademark the name. The logo can come later. You would need to do figurative and also the word, because it's important to have both of them. But what I say to a lot of clients is, let's just go in with the name, because in the first 5 years, your logo is going to change. And then it becomes quite costly. So when you get to year 5 and you feel, okay, you know what, I feel that this is a logo I'm going to work with for the next 10 years, then go and trademark it. Trademark the name before anything.
That's brilliant advice, Nancy, because I got a trademark recently for creating brands for design ethics, creating
Mhm.
brands for global goals, because I just wanted to trademark where my positioning is such, and I was looking at the actual logo, for that as such. I got the words and actual logo trademarked, as in, and I just thought to myself, that's really interesting that you can get it done separately, because from a branding point of view, I know that brands evolve, they evolve with the business. And like that, I think we've talked about before, on another interview I had with you, about, how businesses are evolve and they grow and they transform, and, as
Mm.
they're a moving entity as such, and that the brand grows with them. And I love the idea of that, trademarking to make it simple for people, that if you have an idea around a name of a business, that you trademark the name and then create the logo. But as maybe give it a few years for that, or to see how that evolves and how that's looking and how you're evolving with it, and then maybe trademark the logo after that. I think that's brilliant advice, because I know from working with brands that people are kind of, it's very, their logo, their brand identity and their business is in very much a reflection of a person. So
Yeah.
as they're learning themselves, learning what they want to do in the world, learning how, I suppose, that where their positioning is, there's a huge growth spurt in the first few years of business, and it can transform even like their audience, I guess, because branding is all about your message and the audience, and they mightn't realize like who their actual customer base is. So you're always designing to speak to that customer base, the person that you're, trying to serve, I guess, and sometimes we feel we're serving one group of people and then it changes and it's actually another
Mhm.
group of people. So visually, we have this kind of visual grammar that we use in branding, that has to change to speak to the audience that you're serving. So even though the name might be trademarked, the evolving the shape, the dynamics really of the logo can change. And I think that's a really brilliant point for people to understand in creating a new business, that start off by trademarking the name. And for somebody come to you at Nancy, and looking at an idea like that, say if you have a business idea and you want to trademark the name, you got to get the design done and then open that up for a few years until you see where you're going. Do you think that, would you advise that getting the, is it depending on where you're serving? So say if you think that you're going to be serving in the US, or you're going to be, it's better to get it trademarked there first and then in your own home country, or, because I know you would do international intellectual property law. So what would you advise on the first step on that process? Is it best to kind of do, trademark it in your country, or in the country that you're serving, that you think your clients are going to be
Yes.
in?
You should trademark in the country that you reside first and then
Okay.
go to the other countries. But also to trademark the name, if you trademark a name in the design, then you constantly have to use that. If your design, so let's say, the name is creative aspects, let's say, and you decide, well, I'm going to design creative aspects within the logo, and this is what I'm going to use. And then you decide, well, actually, I don't like the design anymore. The company has evolved. Well, there's a huge loss there. I like
Mm,
to look at it this way. The wording is a bit of the personality inside, and then the logo is the aesthetics. So
mm,
always trademark just the word first to secure that no matter what happens, you've got that name. And then design, then you can add the design with creative aspects in it, and
mhm,
you can change that anytime and go back to trademark anytime, but you will always then with the words be secure, and you
mhm,
will secure it with all the classes that you use in trademark. Because again, if you just go and say, well, I'll put this all together with a tagline and then I'll go and trademark that, it becomes really costly, because in 3 or 4 years you might decide, oh, well, I'm not going to use this design anymore, and now
mm,
I'm just going to have to re-trademark it again, sort of thing.
mm,
So but yeah, trademark is very important, and then patents as well, which
mhm,
on the creative aspect, if you are a tech person or you are, going into technology, or even, making a coffee machine, or a video game or something like that. Patents are super important, but they are quite expensive to do. And so I do sometimes advise to go with a trade secret, and a trade secret is more to cover, if you can NDA everybody that you work with, you cover it in a contract, then you can kind of get away with that. Coca-Cola, for example, did patent their recipe in the 1930s, but it became, a changing and evolving thing. And so it became very expensive. And so they decided, in the 1950s, I think, don't quote me on that exactly, but they decided we're just going to do a trade secret now. So Coca-Cola recipe is covered on a trade secret. Patents, again, the technology of patent goes very quickly. So if you've designed something and then you send it off to get patent, it goes in public domain, so everyone will see it. And they can take your idea and up the game. And so while they might not be able to patent what you're doing, they could take it to the next level. And then the new, they're advanced compared to where you are. So patents have good pros and cons, but at the end of the day, it goes to the public and everybody can see it. And you need to come up with something extremely original, because at the end of the day, a patent can only be patented if nobody else has done something like that in the past. But again, it safeguards what you've created that other people won't, copy. A very, very good case was the windsurfing case, where there was a young boy, 12 years old, in 1958, Peter, I can't remember his last name, sorry about that. But he came up with the idea of the windsurf. So you stand on a board and you hold it. And there was a company in America who patented the windsurf in America. They didn't know he existed. And so for 15 years, they made royalties off that. But all of a sudden, 15 years later, he was 37 in Cornwall in the UK, and they had seen him. So they threw a patent infringement on him. And he said, no, I designed this. I just didn't patent it. I just designed it. And there was a little woman, his neighbor, who seen him on the ocean or the sea, and said, no, he was 12 years old. He was on this board. And he won that case. And in the end, they got no more exclusive rights on the patent. They did have it for 15 years, but this arrived. So patents are territorial. So you might not know who in Africa could be doing it and just not patenting. And at that point, you lose completely exclusive rights on that patent.
Wow, that's so interesting. Oh God! And do you know what actually came to my mind? Einstein, didn't he? He worked in a patent office.
Yeah, but he didn't believe in patents, and neither did I think there was another scientist who didn't believe in it, because the thing is with patents, it's there to educate people, to educate them and use the patent. But it's really, people like to patent because then they can franchise it out or license the patent and make money off it. So
yeah, and Nancy, just one other thing that I'd like to talk about. Thought systems. So basically, say if you come up with a methodology of teaching, we'll say, for example, in the education world, or coaching, or people who are bringing a service or intellectual service as such, say if it was design thinking or something like that, what are the do we have to trademark that as well? So a system of thought as such that we're selling as a consultant, maybe that we're bringing into businesses or something like that. How do we? And I know even creating that into maybe a graphic shape form, like we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs or something. That triangular thought system that's brought into a graphic shape as such, and then it's used kind of intellectually. How do we protect something like that? Because there's a lot of I see a lot in the coaching world, a lot of those systems being created, but are they to the importance of that being trademarked as well and protected?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if you write content for a course, that's copyright. You wouldn't trademark that, but you would trademark the name of the course. You see, and any design that goes with the course. If it's not a name, like there's not a title to the course, then and there was a symbol like a triangle, you could trademark that because you could trademark images, sound, even sound is trademark.
Mm,
Intel, the Intel computer, dun dun dun, that's trademarked.
mm,
I mean, you pretty much
mm.
trademark a lot of things out there. So yeah, it's very important that you trademark the name of a course, but the copyright will be secure because once you've written it down, I mean, if you truly
Okay, good.
respect your creations, you'll keep them safe and you'll just
Mm,
find the information. And if you don't, come speak to someone like myself because I'm happy to give that conversation because I'm very passionate that everybody really is protective of their creations. But just sort of touching very quickly on business plans as
yeah.
well. When you do decide that creativeness is going to flow, it's very important as an author or as an artist that you almost step out of the role of that and
Mm,
create, if you're going to make a business out of it, that you create this plan to do it. Again, like I have some actors and musicians, and I have to say to them, when you come home, you are somebody's like, father, mother, brother, sister, aunt, whatever. And then you step into the role of this artist, which is a business. And you need a
mm,
plan for that. You see a lot of artists go bankrupt because they just had no plan. So you need to do a business plan. When you're writing a book, it's a tool, and you
mm,
need to create a plan of how you get. I mean, so many people, I set up on Amazon. Why is nobody buying my book? I say, did you do a business plan? Well, no, why do I need that? Well, because you need to understand how you're going to market this. And this is a tool, it's not you. And that's the thing with creative people is
mm.
they are really, attached to what they do that they fail to understand. They are actually a separate entity to what they are creating.
That's a brilliant point. Absolutely brilliant point. Because like that, business plans again, people shy away from, they don't want to think about, they feel like, yeah, bring the idea to the world and it magically will,
Yeah,
somehow get sold or,
exactly. And then they wonder why I'm not getting known or nobody knows my work. And authors especially are notorious for that. They think
yeah.
I'm going to write my book and everybody is going to love my book and everyone's going to buy it because I love it. And that's not
Yes.
the truth because
Yeah.
you have to speak a different language to this audience. It's not like it's me. It's like you need to like my book and I will show you how you can like my book. So, and
Mm,
again, with musicians or anybody, it's very valid to do some sort of business plan when you start that journey, and then that will give you the guidance and understanding. And revisiting a business plan is never set in stone. People think,
mm,
oh, I would do a business plan and it will be set in stone. No, it needs to be updated every 3 to 4
mm.
months.
Really? Wow. So it's evolving with you,
Absolutely,
this,
it's like a
yeah.
child, isn't it? So
Yeah, it's growing alongside of you. And I know, and Nancy, you started some online courses around
I
helping
did, yes.
people.
My battery's about to die on my computer.
All
Should
right.
I just
Okay.
get my socket thing?
Yeah, you go work away if
Okay,
you want to get
I'm
something.
really sorry. I just realized that I'm
No
going out of
bother.
battery. Hold on.
Happens is all. Happens to the best of us, as they say. I have to check my battery. It's still going strong. This is really interesting, everyone. For wow, it's such an eye opener. Definitely for what we need to be watching out for. Definitely for creatives in the business world, as well as I suppose there's also so many different creative expressions of who we can be. I know for myself as well. I'm a poet, an author, a designer, a lecturer. There's a I suppose a coach, and there's so many things that need to be protected. And I sup- that that is fantastic advice that Nancy is I suppose introducing us to. And Nancy has a whole range of new programs and some courses that she's going to talk to us about now, that maybe can give us a little bit of a taste of what starting a business plan, I suppose the first steps on that, and what that even looks like, and what that means to start trademarking, what it means to start into that process. So she definitely is a person to get in touch with around that. You okay there, Nancy? Yeah, so I think the Nancy's website is the business mission, and even though she's in London, it's important, I suppose, to understand that, like, that we're in this global village, and it's not just having a trademark in our own country, that we need to think about it when we're online and we're sharing ideas across other platforms, like she's talked about America and China, and how we can make sure that our ideas are going to be protected. And I'm really, I find it very interesting to hear about the designs that are being used on Canva and how we're not protected around that. So I think that's definitely really interesting. Actually, I think that Nancy might be gone. We could finish up there maybe, and I'll just say thank you so much to her for coming on and telling us all about that. And just fabulous, fabulous advice, I know, for myself, and I hope for yourselves as well. And I'll put a link below to get in touch with Nancy. And she's got beautiful, I suppose, propositions for you to get in touch with her at the moment. And thank you so much for watching, and I hope this helped open up the conversation. I might have her on again to talk about these issues a little bit more detail as well. And if you've any suggestions for what you'd like her to discuss when it comes to trademarking or business plans, I'm really delighted to have her on again. So thank you everybody for watching, and sorry that we lost her in the end there, but she's after sharing so much wisdom, you know. I just definitely, oh, she's back again.
I feel
hi Nancy.
Full battery on my full battery on the computer, and it just died down. I should have been better, get the charger up there.
Don't worry about it.
I
was just doing a little synopsis of what we were talking about there, and I was just saying about sharing your details around your website, the business mission.
Thank you.
.com, and that, you know, that I suppose for me, I know that it's a little bit maybe daunting, and it can be a little bit scary, and I think that's the fear, you know. I think a lot of creative people, whether they're designers, whether they're writers, whether they're, you know, coming up with, you know, just even starting, I suppose for me, you see, I think of creativity as anything that you're bringing to the world that's new, that hasn't been here before, you know. It's not, I'm an artist, I'm creative. Like, if any idea, anything that's new that's coming into the world, to me, is creativity, you know. Doesn't matter what it is. So to value that, and that's what I'm so passionate about, bringing, you know, supports around and getting people to really value their ideas, their creativity, because we can redesign, recreate the world from these beautiful ideas that can support people, and also to create a livelihood. Because I notice, like, a lot of, like, you've probably noticed yourself as well, creative people sometimes can't leverage on their massive, you know, intelligence and beautiful ideas, that they can't, you know, to make a living out of it, you know, to be abundant in the world, you know, around that, you know. I just love to get people to value their ideas, value themselves, and to work with somebody like yourselves, that to break down those kind of barriers, and I suppose it's not scary, really. It's more scary not to do it. you know
Yes, and
because,
it's just about confidence. It's just about
yeah,
confidence and knowing your worth and knowing your value and knowing that your art matters. And it shouldn't be scary. I think it becomes scary when you don't know your rights. So
yeah,
if you get to know your rights, and you know that you get very empowered by your work, then you will realize that there's a value. I find a lot when I'm sort of in some groups, that a lot of people don't know their value. And so they say, you know, how much should I price my items for? And I'm like, you can't ask your audience what they should price your prices by, because they don't know your experience and they don't know your value. I mean, I have 3 degrees. I've done loads of courses, so you can imagine all the value that I bring on the plate when you work with me. And so I do know my prices and I know my worth. And so when you're an artist, again, the creative juices and the creative passion, you don't really think of the value, just think, I love my art. I'm very passionate about it. And, somebody who's very passionate, is very challenging to understand it as a business. Like, you can be the best chef in the world, but you might not know how to put together a sales team. And so you'll be buggered selling your food. I mean, you can be the best author in the world, but if you don't know how to market your book, then you'll make no money off it. So you really have to get educated. And I hope, again, I have spoken to our schools, but they just don't, the school system is very outdated, and it needs to be updated more to people that are becoming more self-employed or setting up business. Because I remember in my grandparents and my parents' age, I can imagine a lot of parents saying, well, no, you can't make any money as an artist. You need to have a 9-to-5 job. But it's not like that anymore. It's very creative. We have social and media influencers. We have people that are posting things on Instagram, and that becomes business. But again, they rush into that without understanding the legal side of it. And once they can, get that knowledge, then they will be even more, sustainable to make a profit off what they make, which is worth it, which is absolutely worth it. So I think it was, quote me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Picasso who just, maybe Picasso or Michelangelo, I can't remember, but a famous artist who died broke, and now he's like other people made so much money off him. And if he had known and been educated in intellectual property and what your rights are, then I think he would have not struggled. And it's horrible to see an artist struggle when they have fantastic work that everybody else is making money off. So
yeah. It's such a common story, isn't it? It really is. And so, Nancy, for somebody to listen to this today, and that would really, it's struck home for them. Like, what's the best thing to do? Like, is start to get in contact with you to talk about creating a business plan. I know, could you talk a little bit about what just that baby steps?
Yeah.
I talked about I did a post yesterday about baby steps, like taking one step that they could take towards starting to protect themselves, but also that maybe the business plan, and just even speaking to yourself, like what would you advise where to start?
The key word you said there is baby steps. I always kind of give the scenario a bit like starting a business is like deciding to have a child. And a lot of people just, again, plunge into this. And then all of a sudden, oh, I've got no money to get trademark. I got nothing, da, 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 da. I've got, I didn't realize I needed marketing. And the wonderful thing about a business plan, it really lays down the foundation of what you need to start a business. And there has been many cases with some clients that we've done a business plan and then they realize, I don't want this responsibility. I don't want a responsibility of starting a business because it's a lot of work, and it is a lot of work. It's not overnight success. I tend to explain it, a business plan is a bit like laying the foundation on a runway so you can get an airplane. And there's many people who don't get that airplane off the runway because it's very hard. I mean, statistically, interesting, in my first master's, I did a dissertation on the importance of business plans, especially during the COVID-19 issue. We saw a lot of businesses collapse, and they didn't collapse because of COVID. They collapsed because they didn't have structure. They had no, net to fall in financially. Like, you should have a net to fall in financially if the going gets tough. Like, there's a SWOT analysis. What happens if the global economy drops? And a lot of people out there, well, I'm a hairdresser and I had to shut my shop. Well, you can put together a subscription package for $9.99, send them a shampoo bottle, send them a comb, maybe a tutorial, and at least you keep your business going. Oh, well, I'm a restaurant, I had to shut. We have all this stock, put together a hamper, get it delivered for $12.99. Okay, you have to be very innovative in business to keep up with it. So doing a business plan will really make you understand that. So let's give an example of an artist. If you are you draw oil painting, okay? So again, you need to separate yourself. So you're the artist who's going to paint these beautiful oil paintings. How are you going to sell them? Okay, so start with the business plan. What is this entity here, not you, going to achieve? Because you are stepping into the role of the artist when you're painting. And that
Yes.
needs to be documented. And so, you know, what would happen if there was a global downfall? How would you still sell these paintings? And where are you going to sell them? And who is your competitor? And, you know, who is your target market? Where do they reside? How old are they? You actually need to create your audience. People say, well, I don't know who my audience is, but you create the avatar and then they come. Yeah. And so, you know, you need to create this thing, and also an exit strategy, which a lot of people forget about. And that's probably the most important thing in a business plan, is looking to the future and saying, okay, this business is going to be worth 20 million. And I'm going to work backwards. And every day I'm going to get 10 new audiences, or I'm going to trademark, or I'm going to do a patent. And you're adding all these assets. In the end, it's worth 20 million. Because if I go to sell my business, and a lot of people go, well, I'm never going to leave my business. Look, an exit works. A really good analogy of an exit is Kate Middleton. I like using that analogy because her mom and dad, although they were not overly wealthy, they put her in the best schools and give her the best manners so that she would exit with Prince William. It's not like, you know, Kate's mom is not her mom anymore. It isn't, you know, come over for Christmas, but she has allowed her daughter to go on to bigger, you know, other things. But an exit is so important because you understand how much value you need to add to the business, and you need to exit, whether you are going to sit on the board or you're going to just be a part shareholder. You need to exit in order to do other things. So it's very important to understand your exit and accumulate those assets. So business plan is asset number 1, trademark asset number 2, legal contracts for your business asset number 3, marketing strategy asset number 4. So imagine, again, another analogy, you get it, there's 2 cars. One car has a steering wheel and that's it, and the interior. The other car has a surround sound, a TV in the back, air conditioning, leather seats. This car is going to be worth more value than that car because you've added assets to it, you know? So, you know, it's very important to understand that a business plan is not just, oh, here's a business plan. It's an asset, and these assets accumulate. And furthermore,
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, furthermore, it's really important to do a very structured business plan. Some people, oh, I did a page. Okay, if you take a raft into the ocean or a yacht into the ocean, which is going to, you know, cover the storm better? It's the yacht, because you just put more into building something more secure. So I always say a business plan is a good 35 to 40 pages long, which is all about, you know, your audience, their demographics, their behavior, how do they buy? Because, you know, a lot of authors, well, I don't know my audience. Well, what do? Do they put your book in their basket and think about it? Or do they buy it right away? Or do they buy from recommendation? You know, where do they live? Who do they holiday with? What, you know, where do they holiday? Do they have 1 car or 2 cars? Do they have children? Are they single? Are they a couple? How old are they? And the more you create this avatar, the more you will be able to speak to that audience and lure the audience in. Because, you know, your job is not to scream, here I am. Your job is to work silently in what you're doing, and those who hear you and see you will find you. There's a very good quote actually from Artemis who says that, you know, you should not scream new awareness. You just work silently and softly in what you're doing. And those who see it, and the more floors you build, the higher you get, people will see you and they'll come. You don't have to scream for new business.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. That really resonates with me, actually. And the analogy of when you talked about, say, you're working from your end goal backwards.
Yeah.
That really, as a designer, because that's the way I work. The design process is always that, where we call it a critical path. We don't call it, you know, to get a job. So you start from the point of the launch. So the launch is happening 2 months' time. It might be, like, I've worked with so many different, you know, say government bodies, or, you know, I suppose Taoiseach in Ireland, like the president of Ireland or whatever, launching say and report about something, or they make a big press launch, massive press launch happening 2 months time. Okay, this is what's happening 2 months time. So we have this message that we want launched in 2 months time to a global audience. So how do we work back from that? So you work the
Perfect.
plan
Yeah,
back,
exactly.
and what are the things that you do, and what are the key moments, and then what we have to keep on track on that plan to get to that goal. And then we have to have flexibility in that as well. So because there's stakeholders, there's many different people, the relationships within that, and we know that things don't always turn out to plan, but you need to have the flexibility in that. So, like, to me, when you said that, I feel like that's the business plan, maybe changing a little bit and involving with what's happening in global issues and different things that can be happening in your own life or whatever that changes, and also maybe different collaborations that you might meet with people that kind of give
Completely.
you resources that you didn't think you had, et cetera, et cetera. So, but that you're still working towards this end goal, but you're working from there back. And that really, I think, for me, helps an awful lot in understanding that, because it's sometimes when you're thinking about a business plan from here and going forward, because you don't it gives a sense of, I don't know where I'm going. I'm going into the unknown.
Yes.
But if you're creating something that you really want, you've envisaged that, you have a vision about what that is, and that's kind of a tangible idea, then you can work back from that. To me, feels a lot more solid, like, again, taking the idea into kind of a physical, more robust feeling, because I think sometimes it's hard
A
for
very
people to
tangible
imagine that.
feeling, very tangible
Yes.
feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's brilliant, Nancy. And we're after going off over the hour now, but you're after giving
Okay.
so much amazing advice
You know
there.
what? When you're having a good time, time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. We could talk forever, but I'm definitely going to have you on again to talk about maybe in more detail about different. I'd love to talk about collaboration as well, and setting up, contracts around collaborating with
Yeah,
people,
yeah, yeah.
and how
That's a
important that is.
whole other
And
topic. We'd be delighted to talk
yeah,
to you about that. Legal contracts
yeah,
are extremely important in business. Yeah.
yeah. Let's do another show about that, because there's so much to unpack on in all of those areas. But for people to get in touch with you, it's thebusinessmission.com. Is that
It
right?
is. Yeah. You can touch base with us. We are on Facebook. We've got the Business Mission Facebook page. You can write to us at info@thebusinessmission.com. We also have a LinkedIn. You can contact me on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, you can send a plane over, you can do smoke signals, we'll find you, don't worry. But, on a serious note, if you're not sure, you want a further conversation about intellectual property, please reach out if you're not sure, because I first and foremost is the education of it, and
Yeah.
hopefully, either way, if you work with me or you don't work with me, you'll go away having that light bulb moment, which is the most important thing, to
Mm.
teach more people out there, especially creatives, the importance of, keeping your creation safe.
Yeah, and it's fantastic food for thought, because sometimes it takes a while for those ideas to drop down into people,
Yes,
so just listening to this conversation, kind of marinating in that new awareness, and then we'll be on and have Nancy on again, and we'll talk a little bit more, and open up that conversation a little bit more, and by the end of we'll have broken down those blockages around kind of just, I suppose, protecting ourselves and moving forward into the world in a very confident way, like you talk about, Nancy. And so, just, I suppose, is it okay for people to DM you? What's the best way, or
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
email you? Yeah.
Yeah, email me. We can set up a meeting. I've got a diary, so I could send you a link. And like again, if you want to just have that conversation, I'm more about educating people. And then if you feel confident, we could work together on your trademark, on a patent, those kind of things as well. So
Yeah.
the important thing is just getting that knowledge, and more and more, like I said, with the way we are going digital, there's so much
Mm.
information. I mean, I've been doing 6 years of it, and I still feel like I've just got the icing on the cake.
Mm.
So yeah, just
It's
get
just,
the knowledge.
and it's moving again, like you were talking about. The business plan is moving, but also, like, humanity is changing so much.
Oh,
Our the technology is changing so much. There's new platforms happening all the time, so it's very much like we have to be aware of what's emerging, and then there's so much creativity coming into the world as well, and how do we negotiate that, with the new technologies. And yeah, so it's fabulous to really
entering artificial intelligence, robots, and that's another.
Yes.
Oh God, we go into another topic about
Yeah.
robots creating things, and at
Yes.
the moment, we do not cover robots and animals, so laws need to change there. I'm actually doing the 12 days of intellectual property on LinkedIn on my personal profile, starting on the 25th of December. So if you want more information, every day I'll be posting a video on intellectual property for the 12 days of Christmas. So you could join my LinkedIn profile page and learn about that. And the videos will be going up every day at 8 a.m.
Excellent. That's amazing. What a brilliant, this is the launch pad for that then. Yeah. So Nancy, when people go onto is it Nancy Steidl, your name?
IDL. Steidl.
That's the page that you're going to be doing the 12 days.
Yes, on my LinkedIn page. If you're not sure, you could write to the Business Mission, or it's Nancy, Nancy, and then Steidl, Steidl, and it's on LinkedIn. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll get the video every day from the 25th to I think 5th of January, which I will be discussing every day: trademark, copyright, patent, industrial design. That's another topic of IP, geographic locations, and my favorite, which is artificial intelligence as well.
Okay, amazing. And we're actually going live into LinkedIn just now, so hopefully people who are on my Facebook page, on my LinkedIn page, will link in with you to watch that. And yeah, amazing, Nancy. I would talk to you all day long actually about this, because I just
I could talk to you as well. We have to bring our cake and have coffee. Just eat coffee and all creative stuff for the whole day on this network.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. You'll be my business section. You look after the business section, Nancy. Yeah. Oh, amazing, Nancy. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your
Thank you very much, Caroline, for bringing me on board as well. So.
Oh, it's been an absolute joy, and I loved it. And I hope everybody just, starts to have a little bit more awareness from this. And we have given you food for thought, and have an amazing Christmas. And I'll see you in the new year, and we'll definitely have you on again on Flourish by Design TV.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody for watching and listening, and commenting, and anyone who's listened back on the playback, and people in the States, and I know people in Australia that might be listening, and in the UK, like yourselves and your own following. Amazing to meet all the people from the Business Mission as well, and lovely to connect as always, Nancy. And talk to you all again next week for another show on Flourish by Design. Okay, bye everyone. Take care. Bye.